Welcome to this Thursday video. Normally I do a Q&As on Thursday, but since I did a lot of Q&A yesterday in the live stream, I thought today I'd talk a little bit more about this Journal of Nicholas Cresswell, an incredible book. And today I'm going to be concentrating on the second half of the book. Thank you, Sophie. She likes it when I do a video out here on the ground. The second half of this book is happening in 1776 and 1777. Nicholas Cresswell is back from his tour of the interior of the colonies, and he is back in Virginia, and he's decided he wants to go back home, but he can't do it because of the impending war that's happening here in North America. Or the war that's just plain happening. It's not impending, it is happening. And so he's trying to get back to England, but the folks in Virginia don't want to let him go. And but he tells us a lot about the conditions happening here. And one of the things that pops up over and over, or at least 3 or 4 times, that I find very important and very interesting, is what's happening with salt. Now, if you watched our episode called, I think it was Pound of Meat, we did that probably 3 or 4 years ago, where we talked about soldiers' rations and the lack of rations and the problems they had with meat, and I mentioned the idea that salt was very, very precious at one point in the colonies. Well, this pops up again here in the Nicholas Cresswell Journal. October 11th, 1776, he's in Virginia. Probably the Alexandria, Virginia area. He says, salt sells here for 40 shillings currency a bushel. This article usually sold for 4 shillings. If no salt comes in, there will be an insurrection in the colony. Very interesting. And this section here, we get a little bit more, and he tells us the why of why salt is important. December 4th, 1776. A Dutch mob of about 40 horsemen went through town today on their way to Alexandria in search of salt. If they find any, they'll take it by force, all of them armed with swords or large clubs. This article is exceedingly scarce. If none comes in, the people will revolt. They cannot possibly subsist without a considerable quantity of this article. The people, in general, live on salt meat in the summer. The excessive heat renders the keeping of fresh meat very difficult, even for one day, and the thinness of the inhabitants in the markets prevents them from killing little else but young hogs and fowls. They likewise give salt to their horses and cattle, hogs and sheep, almost every day in the summer. The cattle are exceedingly fond of it, so much that they will follow you anywhere for a lick of it, and it is so essentially necessary that they will not thrive without it. This is January 24, 1777. Salt sold to the people at 6 pennies per quart. So that's not very much. I mean, not very much salt. By order of the Great Committee of Safety, every tithable in the family is allowed a quart and no more. Even this seems to please the people. So salt was so scarce that just a quart of it would make them happy. And finally, he's down, I think, in the Williamsburg area, and it's in May. He says salt is selling for 3 pounds per bushel, which I have seen sold at 2 shillings per bushel. And he goes on to talk about other items that are very scarce and very expensive at the time. But you can see, at least for this early part of 1776, 1777, there was a real problem with salt, and that was the English putting pressure on the Americans by embargoing that salt, keeping the salt out, blockading salt, because the military is going to need that, and that's going to really put a damper on the military. And when we were at Mount Vernon, we even talked about the fish being salted, that Washington was doing all this salting of fish, and that salt was coming, I believe, from Portugal at the time. So really interesting about salt in the colonies right there at the Revolutionary War. A couple other just little tidbits that show up in the book. There's a time when he's traveling and they stop at an inn/house for the night. They need food. They're hungry. They ask the housekeeper for food. The food comes out so heavily garlicked that they couldn't eat it. And I thought it was very interesting because you normally don't see garlic showing up in English cookery books in the 18th century, at least very often. And even Amelia Simmons in 1796 talks about garlic, and she says, really, it's mostly for medicinal purposes. We don't really use it for food. But somebody here in 1777, 1776 is very interested in having a lot of garlic in the food, unless, of course, she was trying to get back at these guys, and so she was trying to deliberately make the food unpalatable. You know, I spoke earlier about this journal, and it's an incredible book because Nicholas Cresswell has so many amazing things happen to him. And he meets up with some really interesting folks that show up in history books. And you know, early on in the book, he goes to the West Indies, and then he goes in the back country of Virginia. And in this area, he's in the Alexandria area, and then he goes to Williamsburg. He has adventures like at one point when he's trying to get away, he and a friend of his, they sort of commandeer a boat. They take a small, I think it's a small ship, and probably with I think the crew is like 4 or 5 guys. So it's a pretty small sort of boat, but it has a below decks, and they actually get the crew all drunk, and they trap them below decks, but there's one guy left on top, and they have to threaten him at gunpoint to go below decks, and then they commandeer this boat, and they go and catch up with a military vessel so they can escape. And there was another time when he's in New York, and they run upon this woman who's in labor, and there's no one there to help her, and they have to help her, and so he has incredible adventures. I think if it was rewritten in a non-diary form and somebody wanted to sort of add a little bit to it, it would make a great historical novel because so many things happen to him. It's almost unbelievable. Really, really great book. I can't recommend it enough. So this is the Journal of Nicholas Cresswell, 1774, 1777. This particular one is an Applewood Books imprint. If you want a print copy, I believe that this was actually published in 1924 from his papers, and so even that should be available online as a free thing, like at Gutenberg or something like that. So you can probably find a free digital version, but if you want a nice print version, this Applewood Books one is a great one. Just a little housekeeping. If you really enjoy the videos and you want to get notification of them, obviously you can subscribe to the channel and please do that. But sometimes that YouTube notification thing doesn't always work out all that well for us. There are a lot of times when folks would rather have a little kind of message beforehand via email. So I have created an email mailing list. The emails will be short and sweet. This isn't, I don't want to flood anybody with gigantic emails that they need to read, but if you want quick notification just as videos come out, or many times right now we're doing a lot more live stuff. If you want to try to catch a live a video, then you will get kind of beforehand notification of that. I'll put a link down in the description section. You can go and sign up for that. Just your email address. Really simple and not complicated. Oh, and another quick note. I just last week or 10 days ago, I announced an upcoming live CD release party and live streaming event for the new Jim's Red Pants CD. Unfortunately, because of some health issues, we're going to have to postpone that. I'm hoping that this will happen in February of next year. I'm so excited about this particular event, but with health issues, I mean, there's just nothing you can do about that. So we're going to have to push that off a little bit, hopefully into February. I want to thank everyone for your amazing support. We had a great live session yesterday. It was so much fun, and I want to thank everyone for all the amazing support that we get. You know, you guys watch the videos, you comment on them. Folks support us through Patreon or going to the website and looking and purchasing things from us. Really, it's an incredible community, and you make that happen. That's the reason why we make these videos. I don't make them just for myself. I make them for you. So thank you so much for all your amazing support, and thanks for watching.